Ethan, do you remember that backyard toast where Dad praised me for donating my own house to you? You all clapped. I just smiled. You thought my silence meant surrender. But while you chose centerpieces, I quietly signed the deed into an LLC with my name on every line. I spent 2 years mastering the clauses that stop a woman like me from being erased again, and today I'm sharing them with you. Because when I opened that envelope at your wedding, the room gasped and my house finally echoed my name. Keep watching, or the next toast might erase you too. Before we dive into the story, if you're enjoying these meaningful stories, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you never miss out on more. Now, let's start the story together. They said it was just a family cookout. Hot dogs on the grill, paper lanterns swaying over the folding tables, and Denise humming off-key while arranging deviled eggs. But I knew better. The minute I pulled into the gravel driveway of the house I owned, but rarely felt at home in, the air felt different. A little too sweet, like overripe peaches. I balanced a bag of groceries on my hip and let the screen door thwack shut behind me. No one greeted me. They hadn't invited me, but they expected me. That's how it always worked. Out back, Ethan was holding court beneath the string lights, gesturing wildly with a bottle of craft beer. His new fiancée, Savannah, stood at his side, all glossy curls and approval. "We're thinking of converting the garage into an office," he was saying, "once the loan clears." My footsteps slowed. What loan? I placed the sweet tea pitcher on the drinks table. Condensation rolled down its sides and pooled onto the paper tablecloth. My chair, folding metal, slightly rusted, sat just outside the reach of the lights. I didn't move it closer. I just sat, smoothed my skirt, and watched. Dad stood, glass raised. "A toast," he said, voice warm and theatrical, "to family and to my daughter Rachel for considering something very generous." My stomach tensed. No one had asked me to consider anything. "She's thinking of letting Ethan take over the house," Dad continued, "so he and Savannah can build their future. Isn't that what family's for?" Chairs scraped. Applause followed. A few neighbors clapped politely, unsure why. No one looked at me, not even Ethan. I didn't speak, just reached for my tea, the glass sweating in my grip. The last time someone made a toast like this, I'd signed a document that removed my name from Grandma's mortgage. "It's just paperwork," they'd said. That paperwork cost me her cottage. Now it was my home, again. Under the table, my hand tightened. My lips curved, not into a smile, but something close enough to pass. When the laughter died down, Dad sat. Ethan winked at me across the table. Savannah beamed, already picking out paint colors in her mind. I took a slow sip of tea and nodded. Not because I agreed, but because I'd already decided how this story ends. If they wanted a show, I gave them a stage, but I kept the script to myself. 2 days after the backyard toast, I sat across from Erica Delgado in her office downtown. The walls smelled faintly of lemon oil and case files. A diploma from Columbia hung behind her, just slightly off-center. I'd noticed it the first time we met, and every time since. Erica flipped through the file with practiced calm. "We're good to transfer title to ClearPoint Holdings by Friday. You'll retain 100% ownership just under the LLC. It shields you from—" "Family," I finished. "It shields me from family." She gave a soft laugh and slid the final page across. I signed. I always signed twice. Once with my usual signature, once with a lighter hand. It started in college after a housing dispute, and it never left me. I labeled every file, copied every receipt. If people erased me, at least my documents never would. Next stop was email. 3 new ones. One to the utility company, one to the mail forwarder, one to the rental manager who'd agreed to stage the empty unit I now lived in. A dull 1-bedroom near the train tracks, staged with scratchy linens, a fridge light that buzzed, and a chipped mug that read, "Think happy thoughts." I moved in on paper, on social media, even left a trail of Amazon packages at the doorstep. But the house, My real house wasn't empty. Ethan had moved in with our parents, walking around barefoot like a prince newly crowned. When Mom dropped by the rental one afternoon with a pie and unsolicited advice, I was adjusting the cheap curtain rod. "It's good to learn limits," she said, surveying the space like a real estate agent who wouldn't take the listing. I smiled. Yes, limits teach a lot. I didn't correct her. The next week, I dropped off groceries at Broad Oak Avenue. Milk, bananas, detergent. Ethan opened the door, nodded distractedly. "Hey, thanks. Mom's upstairs." He didn't ask how I was doing. He didn't ask anything. I wasn't Rachel, the homeowner. I was background, a housekeeper who knew where the pantry was. I left the receipt folded on the counter, my name still printed at the top. They thought I'd surrendered. I hadn't even started yet. They invited me as a guest. I arrived as the owner. Spring had painted the wisteria back into bloom, and the backyard of my old house was barely recognizable. Blush linens floated from rented trellises. Rose garlands framed the patio like something out of a bridal magazine. Guests in soft pastels mingled near the lemonade station, the scent of sugared mint catching on the breeze. I took my seat at the far end, dressed in slate blue, polite, neutral, invisible. Savannah's laugh drifted through the crowd. "It has great bones," she once said about the house, sipping wine on the porch. "Just needs a fresh start." That was before she moved in, before the renovations, before the monogram napkins bearing her new initials took over what used to be my living room. Ethan stood at the mic, his arm snug around her waist. "We couldn't have done this without Rachel," he said, voice rich with performance. "Her generosity made today possible." No mention of ownership, no nod to the LLC, just an echo of sacrifice, spun into sainthood. Someone behind me leaned in. "You're a saint, you know that?" she whispered, patting my hand with warm fingers and the scent of talcum powder. "It's so rare, this kind of kindness." I smiled softly and turned my eyes back to the couple. Mom greeted guests as though she had chosen the flower arrangements herself. Dad wore a navy suit and a smile that held court. They moved like hosts, like curators of a dream they hadn't paid for. Even the photo display by the entrance told a half-truth. Childhood pictures, family holidays, all carefully arranged, cropped at the edges. I was always just out of frame. The officiant called for the final toast. Ethan raised his glass again. "To fresh starts," he said. "To love, to family." I stood. No fuss, no sound but the gentle shift of my chair and the rustle of chiffon against my coat. In my hand was a single envelope, cream-colored and quiet. "Before you all toast to fresh starts," I said, voice steady, "maybe read this." They raised their glasses to a fairy tale. I opened an envelope full of facts. The sun had dipped just low enough to turn the backyard golden. String lights flickered to life. Champagne flutes caught the glow like tiny lanterns. Ethan had just finished his speech, one arm around Savannah's waist, the other lifting his glass high. "To family," he said again, voice rich with sentiment, "and to the generosity that brought us all together." I stepped forward, envelope in hand. There was no microphone, no dramatic music, just the hush that falls when something interrupts a script. A few heads turned. A child asked for cake. "I won't take long," I said quietly. Ethan's smile faltered. "Rachel." I nodded once. "Just wanted to share a few things." I opened the envelope, pulled out a stack of neatly clipped documents. My fingers didn't tremble. The paper smelled faintly of the notary's cologne, lavender and ink. "This is a copy of the property deed," I began, dated March 15th, 2021. Transferred from Rachel Whitmore to Clearpoint Holdings, LLC, sole owner and managing agent, me. A few guests glanced at each other. "This is the lease agreement," I continued, "signed by Charles and Denise Whitmore, month-to-month tenancy, rent waived per internal agreement, also signed by Ethan Whitmore, effective upon occupancy." Someone gasped. "And this," I said, sliding the final page free, "is a 30-day notice to vacate, effective tomorrow." Savannah's glass slipped from her hand. It hit the grass with a soft thud. Her fingers stayed frozen mid-air. Ethan let out a strained laugh, half confused. "Wait," he said. "This is a joke, right?" I looked at him, expression unreadable. "You once said I was too organized to be dangerous. You were only half right." Silence. Charles stepped forward, jaw clenched. "You're humiliating us," he muttered. I turned to him. "I'm correcting the record." Denise's face had turned a shade I couldn't quite name, somewhere between rage and shame. She opened her mouth but said nothing. Guests began to whisper. One woman gathered her purse. A man checked his watch. The officiant stared at the ground, unsure whether to intervene. "You didn't just throw this wedding in my house," I said, each word slow and clear. "You threw it on my silence." No one moved. I tucked the documents back into the envelope, slid it into Savannah's limp hands, and stepped away. My heels sank slightly into the lawn with each step, the music still playing a soft instrumental in the background. I didn't look back. Behind me, the chatter began, low, uneasy, electric, and dessert was never served. No one called the next morning, but my inbox filled steadily. Legal notices, status updates, forwarding confirmations from Erica. The fallout began, as quiet as the sea mist brushing against the porch rail of my new home on Edisto Island. The windows were open just enough for breeze, not enough for noise. I liked it that way. Ethan's name appeared first in the subject lines. Fraud allegations tied to his LLC had triggered a chain reaction. His business loan was frozen. His silent partners, people I'd only heard about in family whispers, were suddenly very loud and very unhappy. And then there it was, my name, listed once as the owner of a house used as collateral, but Clearpoint Holdings stood like armor. Erica's response came crisp and clear. "You are not liable. Their misrepresentation doesn't implicate you." It should have been relief. It felt like a sigh long held. I stood in the kitchen, still in pajamas, pouring tea into a mug with a tiny crack down the side. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of everything they didn't say. The phone rang that afternoon. "Rachel," Denise's voice cracked through static, breathless. "Your father. He hasn't spoken since yesterday. He won't come out of his room." I let the silence hang a beat too long. "That's between you and your door," I said softly. She sniffled. "I just thought, maybe if you came by." "I think you've mistaken me for the daughter you invented in his speeches," I replied, then hung up. No anger, just enough. That evening, a voicemail landed. No transcript, just a single minute of something. I didn't play it. I tapped delete, then set the phone face down and opened the windows wider. A heron skimmed low over the marsh. The air smelled of salt and pine. The screen door creaked once, then settled. I didn't need closure. I needed quiet. Some people inherit family homes. I inherited a history I had to rewrite. By mid-2024, my life no longer revolved around shared driveways or backyard gatherings. The cottage I found, tucked between seagrass and live oaks just beyond Charleston, had no ghosts, no memories stitched into floorboards, just wind and quiet and space that was entirely mine. Most mornings began with black coffee in a chipped ceramic mug and a soft breeze through the screen door. The scent of salt lingered in every breeze. I'd planted lavender by the porch steps, partly for the bees, partly for the memory of my grandmother, who used to say, "Grow what you need more of." I needed calm, so I grew it. When I wasn't tending the garden or walking barefoot along the shoreline, I worked. Not for anyone else, but for a consulting firm I'd quietly built under the name Whitmore Grant & Co. We specialized in helping women find financial clarity after chaos. Some came from divorce, others from families who never believed in them until too late. I never told them my story. They saw it in my steadiness. Last month, a feature ran in a legal magazine, Women Reshaping Legacy Law, and there I was on page 12, mid-laughter captured in my home office, books lining the shelf behind me, light falling across my shoulder like it had always belonged there. An email came the next day. Subject, proud of you. It was from Denise. We didn't know you'd done so well, it read, as if surprise absolved years of absence. I let the message sit unread, the little blue dot beside it a quiet boundary. During one of our Friday Zoom calls, I watched a young client, fresh out of a controlling marriage, beam as she shared her first financial milestone. "You don't know how much it means," she said, "having someone who gets it." I smiled, not out of pride, but recognition. There was power in being the person I once needed. That evening, I closed the laptop, lit a single candle on the porch, and stepped outside. The air smelled like honeysuckle and ocean salt. I pulled my shawl closer and sat down, my feet bare against the wood planks I'd sanded myself. A flock of gulls moved across the sky in loose, aimless rhythm. No one asked where I was. No one needed to. I wasn't lost. I was home. They're still looking for the girl who kept the peace, but she doesn't live here anymore. The candlelight on my porch flickered as the wind passed through, and I realized peace doesn't always arrive with applause. Sometimes it comes in the quiet after you stop explaining yourself. Families are complicated. We love, we hurt, we try. But there comes a time when choosing your own peace is not selfish. It's necessary. In this life, kindness matters, but so does clarity. And sometimes, walking away is the most loving thing you can do for yourself. If this story touched something in you, I'd love to know. Feel free to share your thoughts or a moment when you chose yourself, too. After all, some journeys are better understood when spoken out loud.